Judicial review is when the court decides if something violates the Constitution. Since the laws are able to be interpreted by the court, the Constitution is considered a living document. Like Plessy v. Ferguson, where they decided everyone is separate but equal. But in Brown v. Board of Education, they outlawed segregation. This change in interpretation allows the Constitution to be a living document.
What is the Constitution? The Constitution is a written document written by men called framers. They had written this document after the Articles of Confederation. In this written Constitution was 6 principles to ensure that the government did its job correctly. After the Americans had fought off the British government, the framers knew that governing a new nation would be difficult and that any of their decisions would have long-lasting consequences on their new nation. They had to try not to repeat the same mistakes as the previous Articles of Confederation.
Popular sovereignty, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The concept that government gets its authority from the people and that ultimate political power remains with the people. Government of the people. Government works for everyone. Government by the people. Government is made up of the people. The people demonstrates their consent to be governed through voting.
Federalism. Federalism is the sharing and separation of power between the states and federal government, with the federal government supreme. They were divided into 3 levels. National was the first, of course. They deal with everything that goes on. First, they were the first in charge. We share power with the state and local government. The second was the state. Now they really deal with all the state matters. They were the second in charge, and they believed that we kept some of our sovereignty and deal with the state matters specifically. The third one was local. Local obviously deals with the mayor and the city council. They were the third in charge, and they thought we kept some of our sovereignty to deal with city-specific matters. Now, the national was divided into 3 levels just because they thought that the balance of the state and local had too much power. So they thought they could keep their power and it wasn't giving it all to the federalism.
Limited government is a principle that allows the government to have specific powers. The powers are created using consent of the governed and rule of law. Through consent of the governed, people agree to follow the Constitution. The rule of laws balance the powers.
Checks and balances. Checks and balances are the separation of powers between executive, legislative, and judicial branches.
So per se that the government says slumber parties were against the law. So the legislative branch makes the law, but then what if the judicial system says no, that is unconstitutional? That would make the law null and void.
Separation of powers. The separation of powers is the dividing power among several branches of government known as the legislative, executive, and judicial. The legislative branch makes laws written, discussed, and voted by Congress. The executive branch enforces laws who are invested in the President of the United States. The judicial law interprets laws through the Supreme Court, who reviews lower court decisions and decides if laws violate the Constitution.